Okay, hi everybody. We have an opportunity for a short program, I think, because we do begin with further work on the science of triangles and also on the sacred pentagram work. So at the moment we have finished program 25.1, and I think Michael Crow has put that together for us. So you should have been receiving that either from BL or on a special sendings list, which some of you prefer to be on or would like to be on. So we have kind of a link from 25.1 where DK tells us the hierarchy is impressed from Shamballa and humanity is reached via the hierarchy, via the method of invocation and evocation. Humanity is invoked by hierarchy and then responds as an evocation. And a little bit more, within the human family, two things occur as the result of this received and recognized activity of the science of contact, the supreme science of contact. And if all goes well, then we'll go on with program 26, which tells us about that. We won't be able to finish, I think, the entire 4 pages. It's just about an hour that I have allotted to me here so that I can work. So going on with number 20, program 26, and this is the 17th of November 2021. Technically speaking, says the Tibetan, it is the hierarchy which is impressed from Shambhala and humanity which is reached via the method of invocation and evocation. I guess, actually we just read that. So no need here to read that again, I think. I'm going to just erase it because we already, we already have it, really, don't we, as part of 25.1. Now, how is this done? We're beginning on page 67. Okay, so, and we'll quote DK and I'll occasionally say something. Point 1, telepathic relationship is set up. Okay, now that's the very first of these, how shall we call it? two things occur. Going back just a little bit, two things occur. And the first of these things, telepathic relationship, is set up. This, my brother, has ever existed between members of the human family, and as previously explained, is of two kinds. I'm interpolating here. I'm so glad that DK tells us what he previously told us. I'm remembering a kind of a dictum among the toast masters, the speech givers, a kind of a club to help people speak, learn better public speaking, and the idea behind it was tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. It seems like quite a process, but then people do tend to forget and are not so easily impressed. So this, there's always been telepathic relationship, and as previously explained, is of two kinds. Solar plexus telepathy, which is instinctual, uncontrolled, widely prevalent, and allied to many of the surprising activities of forms of life other than the human, that is, the instinct of the homing pigeon, or the methods whereby cats and dogs and horses will find their homes over immense distances. DK goes on, the telepathic interplay between a mother and her child is instinctual and seated in the animal nature. So that is one type of telepathy. Solar plexus telepathy, instinctual, uncontrolled, and widely prevalent. And then he gives us kind of an understanding of what it may be. Okay. And what I'll do, I'll make that this way, and so it's a kind of inborn, animal-oriented telepathy. And maybe what is surprising to us is that it really does exist. We say we want to become telepathic without realizing that, in fact, we already are. So this is allied to many forms, and it takes different forms, as here noted. Okay. Surprising activities. Homing pigeons. How do they know? Sometimes Master Moria talks about how animals find their way home, um, something of that nature, and I think he calls it kind of psychic energy. But anyway, it is a subtle factor which brings them back. There's an old kind of humorous song about the cat came back. We thought he was a goner, but the cat came back. He couldn't stay away, and then they named the cat Old Mr. Something or other, couldn't stay away. Okay. Now there's another form of telepathy. It seems to be intermediate between instinctual and intuitional. Mental telepathy is now being recognized and studied, says the Tibetan. This is the activity and rapport established mind to mind. It also includes the telepathic response to current thought forms and thought conditions in the world today. Interest in this is very great. So that's still listed in relation to the first of the two, which DK tells us when he says two things occur. Two things. And we've looked at the link between people, which is to be accounted for by instinctual telepathy. And then it appears we have a bridging type of telepathy. Bridging. Okay. And I don't think I think there is this. There we go. So the first thing is telepathic relationship is set up, and that mental telepathy is a bridging type of telepathy and is now being recognized and studied. This is the activity and rapport established from mind to mind. Well, there's a lot of importance in what is said today about it and what is being pursued in relation to it. Now, the second factor, other than instinctual telepathy and the bridging form of telepathy, is called intuitional telepathy. Let's see if I can. No, I can't. Okay. So the next factor is intuitional telepathy, and it begins to manifest increasingly among advanced human beings in all lands and races. So this this indicates soul contact and the consequent awakening of group consciousness for sensitivity to intuitional impressions has only to do with group concerns. We sometimes think that we are receiving messages for ourselves individually, but this is not the case when this type of telepathy is the factor of concern. Sensitivity to intuitional has only to do with group concerns. So, okay, let's put this down, and I'll put it in, since the intuition really begins on the Buddhi plane, I will use that color connected with Buddhi, which is the synthetic indigo color. So again, DK is telling us two things occur as a result of received and recognized activity of a phase of the science of the soul. Two things occur. Now, what else? So, telepathic relationship is set up, then a kind of bridging form between instinctual telepathy, namely mental telepathy, is established, and finally the second thing is intuitional telepathy. Let's think about that for a minute. It can convey that which the soul knows, that which the spiritual triad as the true soul or true ego knows, and it can go beyond, even one day conveying what the monad knows when considering the highest of the two cosmic etheric planes. Well, if we want to have true group guidance in line with the plan and through the plan expressive of the purpose, we need this intuitional telepathy. There's just so many, may I interpolate, varieties of telepathy about which Master DK speaks. And so we have to keep them in order in our minds and try to understand how they relate to each other, how they interrelate as well. So the first thing that happens of the two things that he mentions here, I'm considering this the segue, sort of the end of program 25.1. Two things occur. telepathic relationship is set up, and it can be instinctual at first, and then mental telepathy is also mentioned. So first is mentioned instinctual telepathy or solar plexus telepathy, and then is mentioned intuitional telepathy, which has to do with the true awakening of group consciousness, not just group functioning, which many animals have. You've seen flocks of birds suddenly turn, guided by what you know. It's more of the solar plexus, or it's more the instinctual telepathy, which shows up, DK says, in ways. I think that is the word, allied to many surprising activities of the form life, other than the human. Yeah. Well, may I say, these different forms of telepathy have to be, at least at first, academically well cognized, and then later they have to be recognized. They have to be experienced, especially for guidance in a group sense, especially intuitional telepathy. Okay, DK goes on. The science of contact governs relations within our entire planetary life and includes, for instance, the rapport being established between humanity and the domesticated animals. Now, who are the domesticated animals? We might say the dog, the cat, the horse, the elephant, and, well, you kind of wonder about some of the creatures of the sea who are air-breathing creatures, but we usually think in terms of land animals: dog, cat, horse, elephant, and it is possible also to bring non-domesticated animals to a state of domestication. I recall seeing a kind of tiger sanctuary in the East, and those tigers, they seem to be under the control of the monks that brought them into the monastery. but normally a tiger is not considered domesticated, nor a lion, nor a bear, but maybe unusual instances of such domestication exist. And then, you come to the whole question of the anthropoid apes, who apparently were individualized, though confined to vehicles which prevented their development. But definitely relationships are going on between man and the gorillas, and I'm not so sure about the chimpanzees and orangutans, but certainly man and gorilla have established means of communication. They are, in a way, because individualized and confined because of what is known in the Secret Doctrine as the sin of the mindless, which was the mating, unsanctioned mating of man and animal in early days. Well, they are almost beyond the usual type of domestication. They have something of the human in them. Anyway, the science of contact, says the Tibetan, governs relations within our entire planetary life, and and includes the rapport between humanity and the domesticated animals, and certainly we see some very moving interplay between the human kingdom and the animal kingdom. Yes, some quite extraordinary things. Dogs seem to be saving the lives of their masters, and we know that through veterinary science and other means of amelioration, how much the human kingdom can do and does do for the animal kingdom. So that type of growth of interactivity between the human kingdom and the animal kingdom, especially between humans and domesticated animals, is scheduled to develop considerably during the coming age. Now, what about these animals, the domesticated animals? The rapport between being established between humanity and the domesticated animals. These animals are to their own kingdom. Very interesting. These animals are to their own kingdom what the new group of world servers is to humanity. Okay, this is a very useful analogy. I do recall that it has been discussed, but I'm being refreshed on the subject right now. I guess, without going further, we could say that when hierarchy looks at us, human beings, especially those that are drawing closer to hierarchy, we appear to be like a domesticated animal. The analogy is clear. As domesticated animals are to the human race, so members of the new group of world servers, those drawing close, attracted to hierarchical matters, are to the hierarchy. So let's see what further is said here. I just anticipated a little bit there, but let's see what DK says. The new group of world servers is the linking bridge and the mode of communication between the hierarchy, the fifth kingdom, and humanity, the fourth kingdom, under the present divine plan. Of course, the divine plan could change, is what DK seems to be telling us. It could undergo various forms of modification. The domestic animals fulfill, therefore, an analogous function between humanity, the fourth kingdom, and the animal kingdom, the third. These analogies are often fertile fields of illumination. So I'm going to bring this in, and the new group of world servers considered as a linking bridge. I think the analogy is not too difficult to understand, and whatever domestic animals have to go through, because they have greater responsibilities than animals in the wild, responsibilities actually to the human kingdom. So the new group of world servers has to go through, having greater responsibilities to hierarchy than the average, even fairly intelligent animal. I guess we could ask whether we could consider cows and sheep to be domesticated animals, maybe under certain circumstances, but let's just say they are drawing closer. When it comes to dogs and cats and horses and elephants, we read of definitely outstanding stories of their rapport with the humanity they serve. Every one of these domestic animals has specific functions, and maybe they were even more specific before these days of robotry. Well, you consider the way the horse was used in war. You consider that it pulled burdens, sleighs, and over the snow, and carriages on the dry land. Well, now we have the automobile with, as it is said, horse power. And maybe similar things could be said of the functions of the other domestic animals. Let's just say cats are often put to work to make sure that an environment is rat and mouse free. And elephants are great beasts of burden, not the wild elephants in herds, but those who have been brought close to the serving of man. And dogs, well, I'm thinking of shepherd dogs, and those whose function it is, literally, to corral and to herd the sheep. And, you know, dogs have many other functions as well. They can be trained, they can sniff out disease, they can find cadavers in tragedies and situations that have been catastrophic. I can't even name all the things that a dog can do. I think recently it was decided in China, though it has not necessarily spread among certain other Eastern nations, that dogs should not be considered something to eat, but should be considered companions of man. So that's a step in the right direction, and for those of us who love dogs, it's really hard to believe that there are still cultures in the East that simply look at them as if they were a cow, something that can be eaten. It seems horrific to us, knowing as we do the nature of dogs. But of course, wolves are, in general, not domesticated. Maybe there can be some, but in general not. They're still not there yet. And wild dogs, no. And wild cats, no. And herds of elephants maintaining their independence, no. There's some domestication of the porpoise-like air-breathing sea animals, and some unfortunate things that have happened in the bonds between human beings and those air-breathing and very intelligent creatures. So there's a great range of interest in the interaction between the kingdoms. There's always bridges. we find bridging forms between the mineral kingdom and the plant kingdom, and bridging forms between the plant and animal kingdom, and bridging forms then between animal and man, and bridging forms between the human kingdom and the kingdom of souls. So as DK says, well, I'm just going to kind of increase this a little bit. It's a very fruitful field of study, and I want to make sure, yeah, these analogies are often fertile fields of illumination. As for instance, up to this point, obviously, or perhaps I have read this material, but thinking about it, I see its illuminative power. And I suppose we could keep all that going, and we could find bridging forms in relation to higher and higher kingdoms. Well, we might ask, from the kingdom of souls, what are the bridging forms into the sixth kingdom, the kingdom of planetary lives? And from the kingdom of planetary lives, which involve the first level of the monad, we have the kingdom of solar lives. Are there bridging forms? The thing about nature, and I guess supernature, is that it does not allow discontinuities. There's something gradual that occurs, and the whole idea of grades of beings is related to the gradual approach. So again, we're on our way, we might say. Now, sorry, I have to bend down so low. It's just a question of how far I am from the computer and how well I may see or not see. As regards Shamballa, says the Tibetan, the impression there received is not the result of invocation, which in due course evokes extra planetary response, as is the case between hierarchy and Shamballa, and the hierarchy and humanity, with certain changes during the process of stepping down or of descent. So there's something different about impression coming into Shamballa, and in one of the earlier discussions, we saw what exalted cosmic sources there are. when it comes to the impressing of Shamballa and the Great Council in Shamballa. The impression there received is not the result of invocation, which in due course evokes extra planetary response. Then what is it? This could be interesting. That which impresses Shamballa is received by the Grand Council and is received by the Grand Council. Now, I haven't heard it called that. The Grand Council of the Lord of the World comes via Sanat Kumara, because he is in close contact with other planetary logoi, or groups of planetary logoi, wielding a united, focused, intelligent will. So it's not a question of the usual type of invocation. That which impresses Shamballa and is received by the Grand Council comes via Sanat Kumara. And apparently it's the other planetary logoi who, among other impressors, does impress Shamballa. There's also, I think we read about it, sometimes it's difficult to remember what we've read about, but the energies from Sirius and special constellational energies are those that impress Shamballa as well as the planetary logoi as impressors. So the further example, maybe the least potent of all, are the planetary logoi, but they are sufficiently potent to be impressors of Shamballa, and it's all because of the relationships with Sanat Kumara. Well, these are very high things, and where would we hear about them except through the Tibetan, and someone so learned in the field of rheology, astrology, and the knowledge of the creative hierarchies. Even groups of planetary logoi are impressors of Shamballa. That which impresses Shamballa. They pronounce that different ways. Some people say Shamballa, and others Shamballa. I guess the accent well, maybe there is a proper accent, but mostly when I speak of it, I say Shamballa, um, and maybe many Westerners speak of it in that way. So within the council, the Grand Council, there are places for representatives of these impressing agents. Every planet is represented there. There's a place that where it discusses in the rays and the initiations, I think, who may be the residents of Shamballa, and some very high spirits are found there, and representatives of the different planetary logoi, and one wonders about representatives of the various constellations and rays. Actually, there are the 7 ray lords, and they represent rays of a type of fullness much greater than would find their place in Shambhala, but nevertheless, these 7 ray lords are representatives, and I wouldn't be surprised if the 12 constellations as well would not have their representatives, so to speak. Okay, we'll go on with what the Tibetan says. This will not be, as I say, it will not be a long program because of what I can and cannot do. Now, this is it's quite a long paragraph. It is Sanat Kumara whose task it is to impress the lives who meet periodically in the council chamber with the next phase of unfolding purpose. So these are various Kumaras, the Buddhas of activity, the esoteric Buddhas, the planetary spirits, the ray representatives, and so forth. Sanat Kumara impresses them regarding the next phase of intelligent, or rather unfolding purpose. Okay. And they meet, all of this must be under cyclic law. They meet periodically, and are not apparently always in full council. Just the way the hierarchy meets in its fullness at the time of Wesak, or at least has done so at the Wesak time. And maybe that's one of the times, along with maybe the Leo full moon opportunity involving Sirius, when the entirety of hierarchy meets. And thus, apparently, it is with those who constitute the council chamber of Shamballa. I'm rather hoping that the sound is proper. I don't want to be breathing unnecessarily with certain sounds that would be better tamped down a bit. So it's a question of how to set up my controls so that is possible. Anyway, the next phase, see, the word is periodically. It's definitely under rhythmic law. This meeting that goes on within the council. Next phase of the purpose. Okay. This purpose, says the Tibetan, is later occultly reduced or stepped down until it emerges as the hierarchical plan. If I may interpolate, received in a fairly pure form by the three great lords of hierarchy, the Manu, the Bodhisattva, the Christ at this time, and the Maha Chohan. And this plan is contingent upon imminence. Now there it means that which is about to occur. Not immanence, but imminence. This plan is contingent upon imminence, atmic realization, which the three great lords have, and pure reason, which is an intuitive factor, as the hierarchy has termed these three aspects of reaction to impression from Shamballa. So here are the three aspects of reaction, and they have to do with the immediacy with which certain aspects of the purpose have to be expressed through plan, and the word realization pertains to the fifth subplane of the atmic plane, and pure reason, I think, let's see, divine vision, well, to the fourth subplane of the atmic plane. So, and these are called three aspects of reaction to impression from Shamballa. Now, Sanat Kumara is involved in this occult reduction or stepping down until it emerges as the hierarchical plan. Okay. I guess if this has somewhat confused us, DK is willing to have another attempt to further clarify, what he meant by the three aspects of reaction. Three aspects of reaction to impression. So let's see, I just have a little bit of time only, unfortunately. And DK says, now these are the kind of things we have to kind of remember and establish in a way that is capable of being recalled, if I may say. So, I always welcome it when he says, now let me simplify, let me further explain, let me make myself clear. Okay, let me make myself clear. The hierarchy is no group of mystical workers. Only those aspects of divine purpose which can be immediately grasped and developed, and which are patently, obviously, patently valuable to humanity when presented in right form by the hierarchy, are registered by them. Now that is an important factor because sometimes we think that the hierarchy sits around all day discussing remote possibilities, and apparently this is not the case. Okay, so I'll just simply say, enlarging this, that the hierarchy is no group of mystical workers. And that only those aspects of divine purpose which can be immediately grasped are under their consideration and are advanced by them. I guess that's a very important idea. There may be, for people deeply involved in the abstract mind, certain high and vague notions which are not immediately applicable to the welfare of humanity, but hierarchy is a practical group. They, going on a bit, and just a little bit because, well, just a little bit, frankly, that's all there is opportunity for. Hierarchy, it is said here by DK, they know what consciously to repudiate as it is occultly called. It reminds me of how certain first-ray energies are rejected by the solar logos in this particular solar system because his focus, having the second-ray soul and second-ray personality as he now does, their focus is on the second ray. So even though these first-ray factors are very real, they are not apt to be included in his immediate attention at the present moment. They are not of as great value to the development of the beings in the solar system as will be the case in the next solar system. So anyway, of the hierarchy, he says, they know what to repudiate, as it is occultly called, and it's conscious repudiation, and they act ever in response to the law of imminence, or the occult prevision, which is almost unrecognizable and indefinable by advanced humanity. So hierarchy works according to a law which basically says that upon which concentration is to be given is that which is imminent and useful to humanity at this time. And it is a kind of occult prevision that they exercise. Okay. And advanced humanity can be quite advanced. It is a classification which can go all the way from someone who is simply an intelligent type, but still selfish and still moving towards the first initiation, or it can have to do with those who are proceeding along the path of discipleship. All right, this is, I think you'll agree, this is very interesting stuff. The trouble is there's so much interesting material in this book that how to classify it, how to remember it, and how to render it experiential, that is our problem. The word, let's see, what do we have here? Yeah, atmic realization. Well, I want to make this bigger. Imminence, atmic realization, and pure reason. There's a definite lingo here, you know, and people running into this kind of material at first may throw up their hands and say, well, what is he talking about? But with persistent study, it is possible to know. The word atmic realization, the words, are most interesting, for they refer, says DK, to the quality and the mass of will energy which could be made available by the pledged and unified hierarchy to carry out the imminent plan. Okay. Remember that Atma is the third plane down, and on it, in this compendium of cities, not, you know, not where you live, but powers that Keith Bailey made, we do find Atma, atmic realization on the fifth subplane of the atmic plane. And around page 188 of A Treatise on Cosmic Fire, we can find that as well. Okay, so the mass of will energy, which could be made available to carry out the imminent plan, this is, he wants us to get an idea of what this type of realization really is. Divine vision is the corresponding siddhi on the Buddhi plane. It's on the fifth subplane, but realization is on the fifth subplane of the atmic plane. Remember, the Christ, in giving the Beatitudes, spoke on atmic levels. Now, how to get an idea of what the planes are and their interactivity, and in some ways we just have to say planes are states of consciousness, which are often dimensionally sealed from each other unless one knows how to break the seal. Never forget, says the Tibetan, that in considering Shamballa and the plan, we are thinking entirely within the limits of the expression of the will aspect of the Lord of the world. Now, he's also, may I add, the highest example of the teaching ray on our planet, and he really has 7 purposes, so we cannot confine his only purpose to the idea of will. But anyway, when we're considering Shambhala and the plan, we are thinking entirely within the limits of the expression of the will aspect of the Lord of the world, and this, except for advanced initiates, maybe of the 4th degree and beyond, this is well nigh impossible. The factor has to be accepted theoretically, even if not yet understood. He certainly offers us the opportunity to understand and seems to predict that we will understand. So Shambhala and the plan, we're thinking within the will aspect of the Lord of the world. Okay, that's all I can deal with right now. We have gone as far as, I think we're on page 69, and we began on page, I think, 67. So from 67 to 69. And now what I'll do is bring this down. This is, I've got to hurry, and always disaster strikes me when I hurry. You notice in the word disaster, the idea of astrology or of the stars is there. So this is the end of 26, and our date is the 17th of November, and we started at 67 and went to 69, and then when we take up program number 27, and it will be on the XX of November, we don't know when, we'll start from page 69. Okay. All right, friends, I am assuming that that everything is proper, and I'm wishing you a good absorption of this material. This will be available to BL and to Harold and to Joe, and they will post it in the usual places, and available also to Michael Gaeta, Michael Starcrow, who will send it out to that special mailing list that receives this material in a slightly different form. All the forms are good. The ones that BL and Harold prepare, and the ones that Michael is sending out. So I will call it quits now before it calls quits on me, and thank you very much for being here. Lots of love and many blessings from Tuya and me and the whole communications team. We'll be in touch with you shortly.